Hey there guys, welcome to my Compound Life. I am Jonathan. This is a channel where we build assets, we build habits, and of course we build freedom. That will be financial freedom, time freedom for you, me, and anyone else that watches my video. I make Bitcoin video almost every single day, right? So if you like Bitcoin, if you like to invest in Bitcoin and any other assets, I reckon you should subscribe to me. So hit subscribe, keep up to the latest news on Bitcoin, and let me know in the comment section. Let me know in the comment section who you are, where you guys watching from. It's always great to hear from viewers. So let's get started with today's video, which is Bitcoin Daily Video. As the time of recording, it's the 5th of February 2026. It's around 9:30 in the morning in the UK, West Midlands. So good morning, good afternoon, and good night wherever you guys watching from. So let's start today with some price action. Bitcoin right now is trading at around $71,500. In the past 24 hours, it went down a huge 7.5%, starting from about 76,000, hitting a high 76,000 and a low of almost 69,500. So, guys, we are about 44% away from the previous all-time high, around $126,000 from last year, October the 8th. And of course, in the last 8 days, so we're on the daily chart, in the last 8 days, Bitcoin has dropped a massive $20,000 from somewhere around $90,000 level, now down 23% overall in this short period of time. This shows how fast things change. Initially I was expecting a rally upwards, right? A good dead cat bounce, but you never know, right? So it shows how fast things can change in crypto, where big sell-off happens without too much warning. I'll let you guys know by the time we get into the news section why Bitcoin is dropping so fast. But it's always good to highlight no clear breakout yet for the time being. But the price is showing higher lows where buyers steps in early. Right? If you get into 4 hours chart, buyers stepping in quite early, and lower highs where seller pushbacks. So this could mean volatility is building up, and big move might come very, very soon, right? But of course, no indication of whether the big move will be up or down. But so far, based on the trends, it does seem likelihood of going down will be higher. Okay, so we definitely haven't been able to remain in this supporting zone of 74,000 to about 80,000. And Bitcoin is now at a lower price discovery. And based on what we have, previously assumed will be, just look at weekly, very likely Bitcoin will meet and converge with the 200 weeks moving average. And this for now will be a very, very another key supporting zone. And if Bitcoin can remain and hit this 200 weeks moving average like it has always been used to, then this will be the support. And then Bitcoin will continue to go higher, right? So look at historical trends. Bitcoin, all-time high, hits the support of 200 weeks moving average. And then maybe it retraces for some period of time. Maybe it even gets lower, right? And then, boom, that's it. So this marks the bottom, the bear market from all-time high, the 12 months, 12 to 15 months that I always talked about, right? And then afterwards, this pain will be gone. What you do, you enjoy 3 years of bull market. So this was the recent all-time high. Okay, so another look. So this was not the last, but the before the last all-time high, right? So around 20,000, 19,500. It dropped to the 200 weeks moving average. Okay, so it never quite dropped below, right? It just bounces off. So this essentially marks that 1 year period. So, the peak was at around December 11th. The bottom, it's around December the 17th. So approximately 1 year of bear, followed by 3 years of bull. Okay, that it reaches about 69,000 all-time high, right? From the bottom of around 3,000. This was an incredible run, by the way. Okay, so how long does it take typically when we're at the all-time high for last cycle to get to this? We look through it here. We got to around here. So it takes about 31 weeks to get there, right? 31 weeks from the recent all-time high. So this was the last cycle, by the way, not this cycle. So I'm just taking reference from the last cycle. So the last cycle, the peak was somewhere at around 69,000. It took about 31 weeks to get to the 200 weeks moving average, which I always talk about could be a good bounce, could be a good support. And that essentially means approximately 68% drawdown, right? So 31 weeks, about 68% drawdown, okay? And let's look at the last. So essentially, the peak was at around here, 19,000. For it to get to 200 weeks moving average, took about 52 weeks, okay? And then the drawdown, it was about 84%, okay? So 54 weeks, 84%, right? So guys, can you actually see what's happening, right? Each cycle, because the parabolic move wasn't as huge, right? So that's why for it to get back to the 200 weeks moving average, it's getting less. So this was 52 weeks, a massive drawdown of 84%. The last cycle was 31 weeks, 68%. Okay? So if we look at so far, where are we right now? The peak was sometime last year, 126. We are so far 17 weeks. Okay, 17 weeks. So we are so far 17 weeks. Just pencil this down. So we're so far 17 weeks. And how far are we from the 200 weeks moving average? Essentially, we are around 12%. 12% to get to, from current price to get to the 200 weeks moving average. Essentially what that says, 12%, how fast do we move, right? So for past few weeks, we dropped, for past 3 weeks, we dropped well over 20%, 25%. Okay, so essentially for us to get to maybe the 200 weeks moving average, maybe it might take another 2 weeks, right? So not financial advice, do your own research. This would be like the time that I might, be considering of dollar cost averaging pretty hard into it, right? So this kind of explain why Binance, it's, shifting that SAFU fund of approximately 1 billion, in stable coin, because it makes total sense. There's no point keeping it stable coin. It makes perfect sense for them to shift that SAFU fund from stablecoin, USDT, USDC, whatever, and and just rotate into Bitcoin. And it makes total sense that Binance also state and pledge that at any time, if that SAFU funds worth of Bitcoin, it drops below $1 billion, they will continue to top it up to make sure that that SAFU fund remains at 1 billion, right? This is kind of like DCA, and they've been DCA for the past 3 days now, with two huge DCA amount, $100 million dollars a pop, right? So they already done about 200 million so far, right? So for us to get to 200 weeks moving average easily within 2 weeks. But I'm just internet guy, just a YouTube person that looks at charts and, just making assumption. We may actually head up, that there's always this CME gap that I've been talking about. CME gap is somewhere, I think $84,000. So somewhere back around here, right? So we may immediately shoots up and then come back down again. You never know. But so far, I think that what the trends tells us is this. Okay, so not too bad, right? I'm kind of hoping that we just keep on dropping and then just get it over with, come back to this 200 weeks moving average. How long was this period, right? Let's just check. The last time, how long were we staying in below the 200 weeks moving average? Somewhere here. So it took about 40 weeks to remain below the 200 weeks moving average, right? But the one before, we were like just briefly touching it, and then we had a good run. So, guys, again, coming back to this chart that I love to show, like, what the hell is happening? A lot of you guys are frightened. A lot of you guys are thinking why Bitcoin price is dropping. Of course, there are a lot of macro news, other Bitcoin news that resulted in Bitcoin dropping. And it drops for a perfectly good reason, right? Because come on, guys, no asset will continue to have a parabolic move for many, many, many months, right? All assets, they move up. You've got a good few weeks to cash out. That's where you have a Bitcoin swing back that you buy low, where preferably you want to buy somewhere low around here and then sell somewhere high around here, right? And then you guys need to practice that, right? Immediately asking you to deploy $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 at the low, right? If you're a newbie, you're not going to feel comfortable doing so, right? So that's why I always say dollar cost average, have a plan that sets up to say that, hey, if I want to deploy $10,000, right? Of course, I wouldn't feel comfortable deploying it right now, because knowing the fact that it could even drop lower, right? Maybe sometime in October, November this year, right? So that's why maybe for $10,000, what I want to do is have heavier dollar cost average around the bear period of Bitcoin for approximately 1 year, and then have some dollar cost average when Bitcoin is going up, so that every now and then, every time Bitcoin dips, I buy some, right? Every time Bitcoin dips, I buy some. Okay, so this is the way to do it, guys. So we're in a bear market every time, every single time. So it has been happening so this is the fourth Bitcoin cycle, right? At least for the past 2 and 3 cycles, it follows this like clockwork, right? After we reach the all-time high, right, takes about a year, 15 months to get to the bottom, right? So this is the pain. This is the only pain that you're going through right now, right? So this is why I said to many of you guys, please, guys, don't leave, right? If you want to leave after this 12 to 18 months, right? So I don't want you guys to miss out on the DCA at the bottom, okay? This is where generational wealth can be made. You don't want to come back in when Bitcoin recovered back to 120,000 on your average. You don't want to come back to that and then DCA in here, and then it gets to another all-time high. And then this time around, the gain will be limited, right? So what you want to do always is to DCA in at the bottom, DCA in hard, pound cost average if you're a British viewer, right? Pound cost average really, really hard around this area, right? And then you can bugger off. You can bugger off somewhere and then come back in about 2 to 3 years' time, right? And then take some cash out from your swing bag and then let the remaining be into your hodl bag for Bitcoin, okay? So guys, that's it for price action for the day. Let's move on to fear and greed index. I think everything is so fearful right now. It's depressing. But I'm excited. I'm excited about the whole collapse, because this is where we want to enter, right? That's the reason you're watching my video, right? You don't watch it because you never listen to me when I say take profit, right? Because the FOMO, the expectation that Bitcoin will go even higher, no one ever listens to anyone when Bitcoin's heading up to all-time high. But the reason that you're here, right? Because your portfolio is wrecked. Your portfolio is down, and you need ways to explain, right? For me to explain, there's no point, because why explain to you guys, right? However, I want you guys to see that it's important to remain calm and to continue to DCA throughout the bear period, right? And I've actually indicated that, a lot of people are actually DCA in earlier now because we haven't had the blow off top, and there isn't a lot of bars there isn't a lot of bars for it to drop to the 200 weeks moving average, right? So before it was, the last cycle, it took about 52 weeks to get to 200 weeks moving average. The last cycle, it took about 31 weeks to get to 200 weeks moving average. We now currently at 17 weeks. I think just a matter of 2 weeks. Maybe we'll get to 200 weeks moving average. Maybe how it might play out would be by the time we get to 200 weeks moving average, we're still in a bear trend. OGs not buying, Bitcoin whales not buying, and then it can even drop further, right? So maybe this time round, we'll actually go a lot more below that 200 weeks moving average. A little bit like this, right? So longer period of under 200 weeks moving average. And even this one, this one, we simply just touches this and then boom, off we go, right? So what I'm saying is, for us to get to 200 weeks moving average, maybe it takes less of a time, right? Even by the time we hit 200 weeks moving average, maybe we'll retrace below 200 weeks moving average for a longer period of time. We simply have to wait for the whale to come back, because a lot of whale put it this way, they're in the mindset that, hey, Bitcoin takes about 12 to 15 months to get to the bottom, right? Oh, what did I do? Oh no, did I screw up that chart? Yeah. So a lot of whales probably think, even when we hit 200 weeks moving average somewhere here, right? The Bitcoin whales, OGs, at least for these people, they're not going to come in to buy Bitcoin, because they probably follow some sort of a plan to say that I'm not gonna DCA in until Bitcoin bottoms at around here. So the sheer amount of investors of Bitcoin might not return until much later, right? So despite the fact that 200 weeks moving average, we hit that, maybe we'll continue to retrace for a longer period of time, a little bit like this. Right? We'll continue to retrace a little bit like this until the OGs, the whales, they're like, you know what? Bitcoin has its bottom. Let's now come back and invest. That can potentially play out too. Or the whole ISM cycle can just screw up all of my expectation, and immediately, by Q2 somewhere here, we immediately go back up and even go higher. You never know, guys. So this is why I'm kind of here to help us to plan a different scenario and decide what you guys want to do, right? So the fact that 200 weeks moving average is drawing closer and closer and closer, and I reckon 1 week, 2 weeks, we might get there, right? This is where I'm going to start my DCA. I don't care, right? So not financial advice. Do your own research. So I'm just a YouTube guy that talks about Bitcoin. I like talking about Bitcoin. You guys know now, right? I almost talk about Bitcoin on a daily basis. Okay, fear and greed index, not much point to talk about it. It's just terrible. You guys all know what's the situation, and yeah, extreme fear, more extreme fear, and especially the fact that we're going through the bear cycle, right? Especially for you guys that holds a lot of crypto and shitcoins, meme coin. Please don't get depressed, okay? Because all of that other coins will lose in value 80, 90, 95, 99.99999%. Okay? And so this will be time that every one of us simply just want to be in Bitcoin, right? The hardest asset out there. Okay? So this is why I don't talk about any other coins or tokens or cryptocurrencies in my compound life, because what I really want to pay attention to, guys, I'm kind of retired, right? And I've only got some money to invest. And what I want to do is to grow some of these money in a very short period of time through growth stock, through Bitcoin, and maybe some altcoins, like the good reputable one like Ethereum or Solana, which, by the way, these are not financial advice. I do hold some of these coins and I do have longer term conviction on them. So that's why just giving you guys some transparency. But I've been there, I've held a lot of shit coins, altcoins for multiple cycles. It doesn't feel good, right? So that's why every now and then when altcoins, it rallies a little bit, it's get back into break even. Sometimes I just sell them, right? And get ready in cash, in stable coins for Bitcoin. And you want to hold as much Bitcoin as possible during bear market as well as bull market, as well as forever, right? So make sure you have your hodl bag set up. Okay, so hodl bag and a swing bag. Hodl bag, you hold that forever and ever. Pass that on to your kids, loved ones, grandkids, and so forth. And for your swing bag, you buy low, sell high, pay for stuff, whatever that gets left over, put that back into Bitcoin, and then put that into your hodl bag and build your hodl bag as a priority, right? So that should be your personal strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? A bit like the US Bitcoin strategic reserve. Okay, so ETF flow, depressing, another depressing things to look at. February 4th, yesterday, $544 million worth of outflow. Hugely down from BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK Invest, Grayscale, right? So this is why on a weekly basis, we will look terrible. Thursday, I think there will be heaps of sell-off based on Bitcoin price action. It's going to frighten a lot of people, right? So I think Bitcoin will continue to have more outflows, right, on a weekly basis. And on a monthly basis, yeah, I'm just expecting more outflow, okay? So coming to Ethereum, ETH, so far, it's also outflow, $79 million, mainly come from BlackRock, Fidelity. And let's take a quick look at, one thing to call out. I think a lot of sell-off from Ethereum was largely due to the founder, Vitalik Buterin. He's constantly selling Ethereum. So recently he sold another 2,900 ETH worth about 6.6 million over the past 3 days, right? So it's not that he's cashing out, but I think there were some news previously that I've covered that Vitalik wanted to focus more on building out Ethereum layer 1, right? So Ethereum, they made a lot of mistake for the past 2 cycle, where they focus a lot more in building up layer 2. And that has resulted in, a lot of layer 2 are doing a lot better price action-wise in the past 2 cycles. And then Ethereum somehow just lost a lot of traction when it compares with other layer 1 blockchain, where I think somehow Solana, the sole blockchain, kind of overtook Ethereum in terms of daily transaction, the cost of transaction, the speed, and so forth, right? So Ethereum lost out a lot on that, and Vitalik Buterin was like, you know what? I don't want these muppets to run my blockchain anymore. I want to get back and focus on layer 1. So that's why Vitalik is, he's willing to spend more. So he's like using his own funds to do so. So good for him. I think that's the reason anyway. Yeah. So let's move on to the next section. News that move Bitcoin price, right? So one thing for sure is the ADP data came out yesterday. Yep. ADP, it's a private report that shows how many new jobs were added in the US private sector over the last month. So for January 2026, it came out at only 22,000 new jobs, much lower than the forecast of 45,000. So this data came out yesterday around midday US time. It's like a preview of the official government jobs report. So immediately after this, the implication of the headline, the weak numbers suggest the economy might be slowing down. I think it's a given, right? Look at how many people around us are losing jobs, right? Like look at Amazon firing a lot of people, looking at AI replacing a lot of junior members of staff, right? So the weak numbers suggest the economy might be slowing down, which captured a bearish sentiment in stocks and risk asset like Bitcoin as people worry about recession. Okay. And of course, we care about this kind of news a lot. Why? Because for Bitcoin holders, this could mean the Fed might cut interest rates soon or sooner. Will they cut in March or April? I don't know yet. But this kind of data are good to help them to accelerate the decision to make a rate cut. So these are always good for assets like Bitcoin, crypto, because lower rates makes borrowing cheaper and encouraging investing. So if you're already a holder, this is a reason to hold through the dip, right? Don't panic sell. If you're looking to enter, it might be a good time to buy because, things are rather cheap. It will get even cheaper by the time we get to that 200 weeks moving average. If you're just DCA, I think this 12 to 18 months will be the best time to DCA. So, yeah, just stay strong, DCA guys. Hit the like, hit subscribe if you're into daily DCA. It's always good to see you guys staying strong out there. Other news that's affecting Bitcoin price, and of course we have this. Bitcoin slips below 70,000 as AI-driven tech rout worsens. Okay, so that's a big sell-off in tech stocks worldwide. Not sure whether you guys keeping up with this. So for me, I was like, do I want to stack up more of my Tesla shares last night? I was like, in the decision, do I stack up more Tesla or do I stack up more Bitcoin? So obviously I chose Tesla because Tesla was around 5% dip. And I kind of felt maybe Tesla would give me in the shorter period of time, the price can get up higher, right? But anyway, for me, Tesla is something I'll continue to hold on for another few more years. So you kind of get the gist of me, right? Personally, I don't do a lot of day-ish kind of trading or leverage trading. I'm just more of an investor that buy and hold good asset for a longer period of time. And every now and then when good dips comes, I'll just buy in. So I'm not chasing hype anymore because I guess because of my age, right? And I just want more stability, and I still want growth because I personally haven't had enough growth. So that's why I kind of pick specific asset that can give me that higher growth in a shorter period of time that can help me to grow my wealth more in the span of my runway, right? So yeah, that's what I do. But anyway, coming back, global tech sell-off, it's affecting Bitcoin. A lot of it driven by worries about overvalued AI companies, slowing earnings, and high investment not paying off yet. So this started in Asian market and spread to the US, NASDAQ down 2.5%. I think a lot of this, implication from all of this headline, it slows fear in high growth sector. Spilling over to crypto, and as Bitcoin is always seen as high risk technology asset. So you know what, Bitcoin is always in that dilemma, that awkwardness, because it's a store of value, but a lot of people sometimes think it's also tech growth asset too, right? So guys, just make up your decision. What the hell is it? Let me know in the comment section. Do you think Bitcoin is growth risk asset, or do you think Bitcoin is non-risk like digital gold? Let me know in the comment section. Keen to know what you guys are thinking sometime. Okay. And of course, there are other news. I'm not sure about you guys, right? However, there are people that are disgusted with Bitcoin and the general industry, right? So newly unsealed Department of Justice files link Jeffrey Epstein to a 2014 investment in Coinbase. So Epstein linked to early Coinbase investment. New FUD sparks Bitcoin drops fear, right? So background, I think every one of you guys know about Jeffrey Epstein. A very rich guy with a lot of power who got into big trouble for bad things like sex crimes. And he died in jail 2019. Okay, so now a new files from the government called DOJ files just got open. Yes, I think the day before or yesterday. So this shows that in 2014, Epstein's put in $3 million into Coinbase. He did it through some company he owned. And it was during Coinbase early funding round when the company was worth only about $400 million. So someone named Brock Pierce, who was in crypto too, introduced Epstein's into the deal. But another group, Blockchain Capital, said they didn't take his money for their fund. Epstein invested on his own. So for people new to this, Coinbase is, like the bank for crypto in the US and for many other countries too, right? So, and Epstein's name brings a lot of bad feelings because of his scandals, right? So also there's talk about Epstein knowing Gavin Anderson, who the bloke programmer, I believe, who helped build Bitcoin code early on, which makes people wonder if there's more hidden connection between Epstein and Bitcoin and crypto. So implication on this headline, this crazy news captures a lot of fear and doubt, uncertainty on Bitcoin and crypto. People are worried that big names in Bitcoin might have dirty ties, making the whole thing seem less trustworthy right now. Okay, so after these files came out yesterday, I think Bitcoin price continued to tumble, heading below 71,000. So short-term wise, I think pretty bearish because of FUD. Like this scares away buyers and causes a lot of more selling. But longer term, these are just FUD. We'll move on one day. Okay. Other FUD news that's suppressing Bitcoin price. I mean, looking at this, right? If we're in here for the long game, right? We want time and opportunity to DCA. Essentially, all of these FUD news are just good news for us, right? Because it brings down Bitcoin price cheaper for us to buy cheaper sets, right? So glass is always half full, guys. Okay, other news that so this is a pretty funny one. Okay, US Treasury SEC percent says no Bitcoin bailout. Okay, and that essentially FUD the whole market. Spreads, FUD spread as investors questions whether Bitcoin will gain government support. This is crazy, right? It's like, do we have a bailout for gold? Okay, I don't know. How can you get a bailout for Bitcoin? Come on, guys. Okay, so background, Scott Bessent is the new U.S. Treasury Secretary under the Trump administration in 2026. Right, not this guy, the other bloke. This guy, okay? And during a hearing on February the 4th, yesterday, in front of the House Financial Services Committee, he was questioned by Brad Sherman, who is known for being critical of crypto. So this guy, right, Sherman. Sherman asked if the Treasury could step in to bail out Bitcoin, like how the government helped banks in 2008 by using taxpayer money or telling banks to buy assets to prop up prices. Bessent seemed confused at first and asked what exactly does bailout on Bitcoin even mean? So after clarification, he explained that neither he as Treasury Secretary nor through his role in the Financial Stability Oversight Council has the power to buy Bitcoin with public funds or force private banks to purchase it to support the market. So this comes at a time when Bitcoin price is pretty fragile at 70-ish. And some people were hoping for government backing, especially with talks of US Bitcoin reserve. So implication of this headline definitely made headline, guys. So this kind of FUD, it reminds everyone that Bitcoin is decentralized and not like traditional asset that government can easily come in and save. So people new to crypto as well as Bitcoin might think this means Bitcoin is high risk without a safety net, leading some investor to start pulling out pretty quickly. So short-term wise, it's very, very bearish because this FUD scares off buyers and encourages more selling from those who expected government help. Longer term, people just needs to be educated, guys. Bitcoin is resilient without bailout. It doesn't need, guys, why would Bitcoin need bailout? Right? But only if the market recovers on its own merit, like adoption and scarcity. So you guys need to listen to this. Pretty funny.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent destroys this U.S. senator.
Does the Treasury Department or the various components of the FMOC have the authority to bail out Bitcoin?
Could you please elaborate? What exactly does bail out Bitcoin?
Okay, could you instruct the banks of this country to buy Bitcoin, or change banking regulations so that they're encouraged to do so in terms of the reserves that they're otherwise required to have?
Again, that within the context of asset diversification within banks, they could hold many assets.
They can, and there are different, but do you have the authority to order banks to buy Bitcoin or to invest U.S. tax dollars in Bitcoin or Trump coin?
That's taking the piss, guys. Trump coin? I mean, come on.
I am Secretary of the Treasury. I do not have the authority to do that. And as chair of FSOC, I do not have that authority.
So we're not going to see our tax dollars invested in crypto assets?
Well, why would a private bank be your tax dollars, Congressman?
Excuse.
Sometimes it's just like watching a clown show. Apology to US viewers. I'm just intrigued by all of this sometimes. So it's so fun to watch it sometime and have a good laugh in where I am. Anyway, I'm actually, it's a pretty long video. I'm getting tired. Maybe before I finish, let me just bring you Hopium of the day. Hopium of the day. Where's my Hopium of the day? No, not this. Okay. So I think we all need Hopium, right? Because in the event that 4-year cycle broken, I'm wrong. I'm so totally wrong. I'm fine, right? I'm only a small influencer, right? That I'm hoping that I'm actually wrong too, right? So if I'm so totally wrong, 4-year cycle is actually been extended to becoming a 5 years Bitcoin cycle, right? Bitcoin should peak in sometime 2026, probably in Q2, right? So I'm going to let you guys watch this video. I'm not going to play it now with my face. I'll just do some editing and crop that video in. So that's it for today. I think overall for the past 24 hours, Bitcoin dump hard $70,000. I know it's unbearable. It's the pain, but I've let you guys always know that this is a bear market, right? If we don't follow this ISM cycle thingy, right? So this is a bear market. We're already 4 months in. Typically, it takes about 12 to 15 months. So at least 1/3 or 1/4 of this pain is almost done, right? And of course, Bitcoin continued to dip. It's of expectation, right? Because I've told you so that every time Bitcoin will drop to its 200 weeks moving average, and it does seem we are getting very, very close to it, right? And of course, there are heaps of news out there on social media, on the mainstream media that's flooding Bitcoin right now, right? Flooding Bitcoin, like people disgusted with Bitcoin because of its relevancy to Epstein, global tech sell-off because too overhyped in terms of AI. And of course, US Treasury Scott Bessent said, you know what, Bitcoin's not going to get a government bailout, which makes perfect sense, right? So stay strong, guys. Watch more of my video. Keep yourself calm. Now, watch this Raoul Pal video, and I'll see you in the next video, guys.
Why is Bitcoin sort of not wildly off to the races yet? And it's this chart. Bitcoin is basically, this is a detrended Bitcoin, and it's basically the ISM, which is the business cycle. Remember, we've always said it's the business cycle stupid. It is always the business cycle stupid. And all of these people who claim it's the 4-year cycle based around this and that, they don't understand the fundamental of what the business cycle is, why there's a 4-year cycle in everything. And we've explained it, and we'll go through it in great detail tomorrow in our Everything Code presentation. But basically, it's following the ISM. And rates have been following the same pattern. You see, rates should have come lower. They need to come lower because we need to roll the debt. We've talked about this. That's part of the Everything Code, fundamental part. And ISM, because rates are so high, has meant that Main Street has been screwed while Wall Street's made money from debasement. Earnings versus scarce assets. This is the issue that they need to solve, and they need to get rates lower. They get rates lower. Why? Why do we have an elongated business cycle that looks like virtually no other other time? It's because, and I only just found this out redoing the work on the Everything Code recently, is that in 2021-22, they actually extended the maturity of the debt from 4 years to 5 years. So that extension of the maturity of debt has pushed out the business cycle a year. The 4-year cycle this time around is a 5-year cycle. We don't know what the next one will be until we see where they all end up getting refinanced, whether it comes back to 4 because they managed to get some stuff at the long end, or whether they shorten it because everything's in the short end. We don't know yet. But this one is a 5-year cycle. And this is what it looks like. The 5.4-year sine curve, 5.4 years is the exact average weighted maturity of the debt. And it tells us the ISM should peak by 2026. We think liquidity probably peaks before that, as the rate of change of ISM changes and the rate of change of liquidity